I used to believe that trust, once broken, was like a shattered mirror. You might piece it back together, but you'd always see the cracks. Now I know it's worse than that. It's like waking up one morning to find the person you thought you knew had been wearing a mask all along. This is my story, a journey through betrayal, collapse, and the long, painful road back to myself. If this sounds familiar to you, if you've felt that knife twist of betrayal, stay with me. Sometimes knowing you're not alone is the first step to healing. If this story resonates with you, share it to help us grow the Whispered Truths channel. I thought I had it all figured out. Growing up watching my parents' marriage crumble taught me what to avoid. The screaming matches, the slammed doors, the cold silences that stretched for days. I promised myself I'd build something different, something stable. When I met Eliza at my friend Mike's barbecue, I wasn't looking for fireworks. I was looking for substance, for someone who valued honesty as much as I did. She sat across from me at a picnic table, laughing about how she'd gotten lost 3 times on the way there, her dark hair catching the late afternoon sun. There was something grounded about her, something real. Our courtship wasn't the stuff of movies, no dramatic airport chases or grand declarations in the rain. Instead, we built something that felt solid. Coffee on Sunday mornings, thoughtful discussions about our future, quiet understanding. After 2 years of dating, I proposed on a hike through Discovery Park, our favorite weekend spot. The ring wasn't extravagant, but her eyes filled with tears as she said yes. "I choose you, James," she said. "Every day, I choose you." We bought our Craftsman home in Seattle's Ravenna neighborhood a year after the wedding. I'd come home from the architectural firm to find Eliza sketching renovation plans at the kitchen table, her marketing reports pushed aside. We'd cooked dinner together while sharing stories about our days. We hiked on weekends, planted a garden, discussed having children someday. Our life wasn't perfect. Whose is? But it was ours, built on what I thought was an unshakable foundation of trust. If I'm honest with myself, the changes started small, almost imperceptible. Like watching the minute hand on a clock. You know it's moving, but you can't quite see it happen. Eliza's company expanded, opening offices in Portland and San Francisco. "I'll need to travel more," she told me over dinner one night, not quite meeting my eyes. "Just for a while, until everything settles." I supported her, of course. That's what partners do. I'd kiss her goodbye, tell her to knock 'em dead, then spend my evenings alone, sketching new designs or catching up with friends. But something shifted. The calls from her hotel room grew shorter. "I'm exhausted, James. Can we talk tomorrow?" The detailed stories about her colleagues and meetings dwindled to vague summaries. When she came home, she seemed distant, checking her phone constantly, carrying it with her from room to room like it contained state secrets. "Is everything okay?" I'd ask, watching her pull away when I tried to hug her. "Just work stress," she'd say, offering a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This expansion is killing me." I tried harder. I learned to make her favorite meals. Eggplant parmesan that took hours to prepare, Vietnamese pho with homemade broth that simmered all day. I'd light candles, open wine, try to recreate the connection I felt slipping away. She'd compliment the food, but her mind was elsewhere, her responses automatic. Sometimes I'd catch her staring at her phone, a small smile playing on her lips that would disappear the moment she noticed me watching. "Who's that?" I asked once, trying to keep my voice casual. "Just Rachel from work," she said, setting the phone face down. "She's having drama with her boyfriend again." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But a seed of doubt had been planted. A small, insistent voice that whispered, "Something isn't right." The turning point came on a Tuesday in March. Eliza had left early for what she said was an all-day strategic planning meeting. I was knee-deep in a difficult project at work when I realized I'd forgotten to ask her about dinner with my colleague that night. I called her office, expecting to leave a message. "Eliza Bennett? She took a personal day today," her assistant said, confusion in her voice. "Did she not tell you?" Something cold and hard settled in my stomach. "My mistake," I managed. "Thanks." That night I watched her walk through the door, listened to her talk about the productive meeting, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. I had never gone through someone's phone before. It violated everything I believed about privacy and respect. But that night, after she fell asleep, I found myself standing next to her nightstand, staring at her phone like it was a bomb about to detonate. My hands shook as I picked it up. She'd changed her password, but I'd seen her type it in enough times to guess. 7425. Our anniversary, July 4th, followed by her lucky number. The irony wasn't lost on me. The messages weren't hard to find. She hadn't even bothered to delete them. RC. The initials meant nothing to me then. The conversation was brief but crushing. "Miss yesterday. Hotel same time next week?" Her response, "Can't wait, making up an overnight conference." I sat on the edge of the bathtub until dawn, reading and rereading those messages, feeling my world collapse inward. Before she woke, I installed a tracking app on her phone, becoming someone I never thought I'd be, someone desperate and suspicious. I hated myself for it, but I hated the alternative more, continuing to live a lie. For 3 weeks I lived in a special kind of hell. I watched the little dot that represented my wife's location move across the city to hotels when she was supposed to be at conferences. I collected screenshots, receipts from her email, timestamps that contradicted her stories. Each piece of evidence was a knife in my chest. I lost weight, couldn't sleep, moved through my days like a ghost. Colleagues asked if I was ill. I told them I was just stressed about a project. All the while I maintained the facade at home. I cooked dinners she barely touched. I asked about her day and listened to elaborate lies. I kissed her goodnight while calculating when I could next check the tracking app. I'd become a detective in my own marriage, gathering evidence for a case I never wanted to build. I'd spent weeks gathering evidence, but nothing could have prepared me for what I would see when that hotel room door swung open. The next 60 seconds would permanently divide my life into before and after. When she mentioned another overnight conference in Bellevue, I simply nodded and said, "Be safe." The calm in my voice surprised even me, the voice of a stranger wearing my skin. I followed the tracker to the Westlake Hotel downtown, not Bellevue. My heart pounded as I approached room 712. The hotel clerk had been sympathetic after seeing my wedding ring and hearing just enough of my story. "I think my wife might be in danger," I'd said, the lie burning my throat. The keycard worked on the first try. The door swung open silently, and time seemed to stop. There was Eliza, my wife of 5 years, in the arms of a tall man with salt and pepper hair. They were standing by the window, his hands on her waist, her head on his shoulder. It looked so intimate, so familiar, that for a second I wondered if I was the intruder in their relationship, not the other way around. They turned at the sound of the door, and Eliza's face cycled through emotions with terrible clarity: shock, shame, and then something that looked horribly like relief. The man, who I would later learn was Ryan Calloway, her ex-boyfriend from college, stepped back, his face carefully blank. I didn't scream. I didn't charge at him or break down sobbing. I simply said, "Gotcha," turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard Eliza call my name, her voice cracking. I kept walking, through the hotel lobby, past concerned glances, into the cold Seattle rain. I drove home in a trance, packed a bag, and checked into a different hotel. That night, alone in a sterile room, I finally allowed myself to break. Have you ever had that moment where your entire reality shifts in seconds? That instant when everything you believed about your relationship suddenly reveals itself as a lie? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes putting words to our pain is the first step toward healing. The next 3 months nearly destroyed me. I lost 20 pounds, barely slept, and took a leave of absence from work. I changed the locks on our house, my house now, and left her belongings in boxes on the porch. I communicated only through lawyers. Friends awkwardly chose sides. Some disappeared entirely. Family asked uncomfortable questions I couldn't bear to answer. Each night alone in what had been our home felt like drowning in slow motion. The betrayal infected everything. My self-worth, my judgment, my ability to trust my own perceptions. Had I been a terrible husband? Had there been signs I'd ignored for years? Was some fundamental flaw in me responsible for pushing her away? These questions tortured me as I moved through days in a fog, replaying every moment of our marriage, searching for clues I might have missed. "You need to eat something," my brother said during one of his check-ins, eyeing my gaunt frame. "I'm not hungry," I replied, the same answer I gave everyone. "She's not worth destroying yourself over," he said, his frustration evident. But that was the thing no one understood. It wasn't just about Eliza anymore. It was about the collapse of everything I thought I knew. My judgment, my perception of reality, my belief in my ability to build something lasting. All of it had been revealed as fatally flawed. I started seeing a therapist, more out of desperation than hope. Dr. Mercer listened patiently to my circular thoughts, my obsessive deconstruction of the relationship. "James," she said during one session, "have you considered that her betrayal reflects her character, not yours?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I'd been so busy assuming I must have caused this somehow that I hadn't considered the simpler truth. Eliza had made a choice, many choices actually, none of which I had forced her to make. Slowly, painfully, I began rebuilding some semblance of normal life. I returned to work. I forced myself to eat regular meals. I started running along the waterfront, the physical exertion providing temporary relief from the endless loop of thoughts. When she appeared at my door 4 months later with tears in her eyes, I told myself I was strong enough to maintain boundaries. I was wrong. Some lessons, it seems, I needed to learn twice. "Ryan's gone," she said, standing on my porch in the rain, looking smaller somehow. "He disappeared once things got messy. It was a mistake, James. The biggest mistake of my life. I miss you. I miss our life together." I should have closed the door. Everyone had warned me. My brother, my friends, even Dr. Mercer. "Reconciliation is possible," she'd said carefully, "but not without complete transparency and significant time for rebuilding trust." Instead, I stepped aside and let Eliza in, watching as she moved through our home like a ghost returning to familiar haunts. "I never stopped loving you," she said, her voice breaking. "Please, can we try again?" Against my better judgment, against everyone's advice, I agreed to marriage counseling. For 3 weeks I believed we might rebuild something from the ashes. We talked more honestly than we had in years. She answered my questions about Ryan, about the affair, about her feelings. She deleted social media, offered full access to her phone, committed to transparency. "I want to trust you," I told her during our second counseling session. "But I don't know if I can. I'll earn it back," she promised, "however long it takes." I wanted to believe her. Part of me did believe her. But one night, as we sat on opposite ends of the couch, trying to watch a movie like normal people, I saw her phone screen light up with a notification. Just a glimpse, but enough. "Ryan C., I miss you. Can we talk?" She lunged for the phone, but it was too late. I'd seen it, and she'd seen me see it. The fragile trust we'd begun to construct collapsed instantly. "It's not what you think," she started, but I cut her off. "Don't," I said, my voice hollow. "Just don't." This second betrayal hurt almost more than the first. I'd given her another chance, against all logic and advice, and she'd used it to maintain contact with the man she'd betrayed me with. I realized then what I should have known from the start. Some broken things can't be fixed, no matter how badly you want to restore them. She moved out the next day, and I filed for divorce the following week. This time there were no tears on my part, just a dull resignation. The divorce proceedings were mercifully straightforward. We had no children, and Eliza didn't contest my claims or demands. I kept the house. She kept her dignity, such as it was. I heard through mutual friends that she and Ryan moved to Chicago together, though that relationship predictably imploded within months. A year after the day I opened that hotel door, I sat alone on the deck of the lakeside cabin my grandfather had left me in his will. I'd spent months renovating it with my own hands, finding therapy in physical labor, replacing rotted boards, installing new windows, sanding and staining the deck. Each weekend I'd drive the 2 hours from Seattle, losing myself in tangible problems I could actually solve. That evening, Watching the sunset reflect on the lake's surface, I realized I'd gone an entire day without thinking about Eliza. The pain hadn't disappeared entirely, it probably never would, but it had transformed into something manageable, even valuable. I understood now what my grandfather meant when he told me, after my grandmother's death, pain shapes you, but it doesn't have to define you. I'd learned painful lessons, that trust once broken is rarely fully restored, that I was stronger than I knew, that my worth wasn't determined by someone else's choices. I'd started dating again, cautiously, and had recently met Claire, a wildlife photographer who seemed to value honesty as much as I did. We were taking it slow, building a foundation carefully, with eyes wide open. Sitting there on the deck, I understood something else too. What Eliza and I had built hadn't been wrong exactly, just incomplete. Comfortable isn't the same as meaningful. Real love requires both security and passion. Sometimes we settle for what feels safe because we fear the vulnerability that deeper connection demands. As the last light faded from the sky, I felt gratitude alongside the lingering pain. Gratitude for the lessons, for the growth, for the chance to build something more authentic the next time around. Sometimes, the most painful endings lead to necessary beginnings. If you've survived betrayal and come out stronger on the other side, what was the one piece of advice that helped you through your darkest moments? Your wisdom might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now. Remember to subscribe to Whispered Truths for more stories of survival and transformation, because none of us should have to walk these painful paths alone.